Welcome to American Scandal Report. I'm your host, Oz Dalton, and today we're diving deep into one of the most explosive political controversies of our time. The Daniels Trump scandal isn't just a story about alleged infidelity or hush money. It's a tale that exposes the dangerous intersection of power, secrecy, and democracy itself. Over the next hour, we'll journey through every twist and turn of this extraordinary saga. From a chance encounter at a celebrity golf tournament to the historic moment when a former president sat in a criminal courtroom. This is a story that changed American politics forever. Let's start our story in 2006 at the pristine shores of Lake Tahoe. Picture this: a celebrity golf tournament bringing together the glittering elite from entertainment, sports, and business. Among the attendees were two people whose paths would collide in ways that would later shake the foundations of American democracy. Donald Trump, already a household name as a billionaire businessman and television personality, riding high on the success of The Apprentice. He's married to Melania, a father, and at the peak of his celebrity status. Then there's Stephanie Clifford, better known as Stormy Daniels, one of the most recognizable names in the adult film industry, successful not just as a performer, but as a director and writer. Now here's where it gets fascinating. According to Daniels' later accounts, their meeting wasn't just a casual celebrity handshake. Trump, leveraging that larger-than-life persona we all knew from television, allegedly expressed genuine fascination with Daniels and her career. Think about the psychology here. A man who thrived on being the center of attention, meeting a woman who commanded her own spotlight in an entirely different world. Daniels would later describe how Trump invited her to his hotel suite, where she claims a sexual encounter took place. Trump has consistently denied this affair ever happened, but what's crucial to understand is how this alleged meeting represents something much bigger than tabloid gossip. We're looking at the collision of two very different worlds: the billionaire businessman who craved the spotlight, and the entertainer from an industry that society has long stigmatized and marginalized. This wasn't just about personal choices behind closed doors, it was about power imbalance and the seeds of a scandal that would define a presidency. Daniels later recalled specific details that paint a vivid picture: Trump's charm offensive, his attempts to flatter her, even dangling the possibility that she might appear on his television shows. For her, this might have started as just another encounter with a wealthy public figure, but in hindsight, this single night would become a symbol of how intimate, personal interactions can explode into national crises when one party ascends to the most powerful office in the world. What makes this story so compelling isn't the alleged affair itself. Celebrity infidelity is hardly breaking news. What's remarkable is how this encounter became a cornerstone of presidential scandal, setting into motion a chain of events involving money, secrecy, and legal battles that would dominate global headlines and create one of the most extraordinary intersections of sex and politics in modern history. Fast forward to October 2016. America is in the final, frenzied weeks of one of the most contentious presidential elections in history: Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, a race that would determine the future of American democracy. But behind the scenes, a very different kind of political maneuvering was taking place. Enter Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney and longtime fixer, a man whose job description essentially boiled down to making Trump's problems disappear. And in October 2016, Cohen faced perhaps his biggest challenge yet. Stormy Daniels was preparing to go public with her story. Think about the timing here. This wasn't just any moment in Trump's career. This was weeks before Election Day, when Trump's support base was already being tested by multiple accusations regarding his behavior toward women. The Access Hollywood tape had just been released, where Trump bragged about grabbing women. Another story involving an adult film actress could have been the final straw that cost him the presidency. This is where the story transforms from personal scandal into something that strikes at the heart of democratic process. Cohen orchestrated what can only be described as a masterpiece of legal maneuvering. A $130,000 payment to Daniels in exchange for her silence, all disguised through a private corporation Cohen created specifically for this transaction. But let's talk about what this really was. Election manipulation through financial coercion. The secrecy wasn't just about protecting Trump's reputation. It was about controlling information that voters needed to make an informed decision. When money becomes a tool to hide truth from the electorate, we're no longer talking about personal privacy. We're talking about the integrity of democracy itself. For Daniels, accepting this agreement represented an impossible choice. Speak out and face the full weight of Trump's legal and financial machinery, along with inevitable public ridicule and potential threats. Or take the money and disappear from a story that was about to consume American politics. The pressure from both sides was immense, and the financial offer provided immediate protection from what she knew would be a political firestorm. What seemed like a final resolution, problem solved, story buried, election secured, was actually just the beginning. This hush money deal wasn't simply a private contract. It was evidence of how powerful figures manipulate the democratic process. The concealment of information about a presidential candidate with the specific purpose of influencing election outcomes raised fundamental questions about transparency, legality, and the very nature of informed democracy. The transaction created a paper trail that would later become crucial evidence in criminal proceedings. Every receipt, every signed agreement, every financial record became a breadcrumb leading back to this moment when money was used to shape America's political destiny. The deal demonstrated that in the world of ultimate power, silence isn't just golden, it's purchasable, and democracy itself can become a commodity. For nearly 2 years, it seemed like the plan had worked perfectly. Stormy Daniels had been paid, silenced, and effectively erased from the Trump narrative. The 2016 election was won, Trump was in the White House, and the $130,000 appeared to be money well spent. But silence, especially when it's bought, has a way of becoming more expensive over time. By 2018, everything changed. Daniels made a decision that would transform her from a footnote in presidential history into a central figure in American politics. She chose to break her silence, and in doing so, she set off one of the most explosive confrontations between a sitting president and a private citizen in modern history. This wasn't a decision made lightly. According to Daniels' accounts, she faced intimidation tactics that went far beyond legal threats. We're talking about direct warnings, pressure campaigns, and the full weight of presidential power being deployed to keep her quiet. Imagine being a single person facing not just a billionaire, but a billionaire who happens to be the president of the United States. But here's where Daniels proved she was no ordinary victim. She found a legal vulnerability. Trump had never personally signed the non-disclosure agreement. Her lawyers argued this made the entire contract invalid, opening the door for her to speak publicly without legal consequences. When Daniels finally went on television to tell her story, it became a cultural phenomenon. Millions of Americans tuned in to hear detailed personal accounts that made her allegations impossible to dismiss as mere gossip. For a woman from the adult film industry to directly challenge a sitting president required extraordinary courage, knowing she was risking everything: her safety, her career, her reputation. What's remarkable is how Daniels transformed from participant in a scandal into a symbol of resistance against intimidation. She wasn't just sharing salacious details, she was speaking for everyone who'd ever been silenced by powerful men with unlimited resources. Her willingness to challenge the president in open forums completely disrupted the narrative of secrecy that Trump's team had worked so hard to maintain. The silence that was supposed to be permanent became an uproar that couldn't be contained. By breaking free from the hush money agreement, Daniels reframed the entire scandal. This was no longer about rumor and payment. It was about courage versus suppression, truth versus power, and one woman's refusal to let money define her story. Her decision to speak out amplified the legal stakes exponentially. Suddenly, Trump and his allies were on the defensive, trying to explain not just the alleged affair, but the cover-up, the payments, and the elaborate schemes to keep it all hidden. Daniels had turned from a problem that was solved into a crisis that was expanding. Once Stormy Daniels broke her silence, something extraordinary happened. The story exploded across every conceivable media platform with the force of a cultural nuclear bomb. Within hours, it dominated headlines from the New York Times to Entertainment Tonight, from CNN to late-night comedy shows. What had been successfully contained through legal agreements and financial pressure became one of the most relentless political scandals in recent memory. The media frenzy revealed something fascinating about how scandal operates in the digital age. This wasn't just news, it was entertainment, political drama, legal thriller, and cultural commentary, all rolled into one irresistible package. Mainstream outlets approached it from every possible angle. Some focused on the legal implications. Did the hush money violate campaign finance laws? What did it mean for Trump's presidency? Others saw pure tabloid gold, a sitting president, an adult film star, and secret payments. But here's where it gets really interesting. The coverage itself became a cultural divider. Conservative outlets often portrayed Daniels as an opportunist trying to damage the president for fame and money. Liberal networks emphasized the hush money as evidence of Trump's unethical behavior and potential criminal activity. The polarized coverage didn't just report the scandal. It shaped how Americans understood it based on their existing political beliefs. Meanwhile, entertainment culture grabbed the story and ran wild with it. Saturday Night Live created sketches that became viral sensations. Late-night hosts crafted monologues that turned legal proceedings into punchlines. Social media platforms transformed every development into memes, debates, and endless commentary. The scandal became virtually impossible to escape, blending serious legal concerns with comedy in ways that both illuminated and trivialized the underlying issues. For Daniels personally, this media explosion was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gave her an unprecedented platform to tell her story and challenge one of the most powerful men in the world. She appeared on talk shows, news programs, and interviews where she gave detailed, candid accounts that commanded national attention. On the other hand, she was living under a spotlight brighter than anything she'd experienced in her adult film career. Every aspect of her life became subject to scrutiny, ridicule, and public debate. The woman who'd been paid to stay silent was now the most talked about person in America, with all the benefits and brutal consequences that came with that level of exposure. For Trump, the media firestorm meant that any attempt to dismiss or ignore the story was immediately overwhelmed by constant coverage. Every denial was analyzed, every legal maneuver was reported, and every new development was treated as breaking news. The relentless attention ensured that what Trump most wanted, for the story to disappear, was impossible. This phase of the scandal demonstrates how media can simultaneously serve truth and sensationalism. While it gave Daniels a voice and kept pressure on powerful figures to face accountability, it also turned serious questions about democracy and justice into entertainment spectacle. The coverage became both reflective of the scandal and an engine that drove it forward, ensuring it would remain at the center of American political conversation. And now we arrive at the most unprecedented chapter of this entire saga, the moment when the Daniels-Trump scandal evolved from media spectacle into criminal courtroom drama. For the first time in American history, a former president sat in a defendant's chair, facing charges directly connected to that Lake Tahoe encounter and the subsequent cover-up. The charges were as historic as they were specific. Donald Trump was accused of falsifying business records to disguise the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels. But prosecutors argued this wasn't just about paperwork or personal embarrassment. This was about deliberately manipulating a presidential election by hiding information that could have changed how Americans voted. Think about the magnitude of what was happening here. The reimbursements to Michael Cohen that were categorized as routine legal expenses were, according to prosecutors, actually part of an elaborate scheme to conceal payments for silencing a story that could have swayed the 2016 election. We're talking about democracy itself being potentially manipulated through financial deception. The courtroom became a stage for one of the most extraordinary legal confrontations in American history. Michael Cohen, once Trump's most loyal defender and fixer, now stood as the prosecution's star witness against his former boss. His testimony provided the foundation of the case, describing in detail how the transactions were executed and why they needed to be disguised. But this wasn't just about Cohen's word. The prosecution had documents, financial records, recorded conversations, and a paper trail that told the story of systematic deception. Every receipt, every reimbursement, every falsified record became evidence in a case that was really asking, can a president manipulate an election through secret payments and then escape accountability by calling it a personal matter? The defense strategy was equally fascinating. Trump's lawyers worked relentlessly to destroy Cohen's credibility, portraying him as a disgraced insider, seeking revenge against his former boss. They argued that even if payments were made, they were personal matters unrelated to the campaign, and that calling them anything else was a politically motivated prosecution. Outside the courthouse, the trial became a daily spectacle that captured global attention. Media coverage was absolutely relentless. Crowds of supporters and protesters gathered every day, Each ruling, each piece of testimony, each legal maneuver was analysed for both its legal significance and its political implications. For Trump's supporters, the case often represented a weaponization of the justice system, a politically motivated attack designed to weaken his influence and prevent his return to power. For his critics, it was long overdue accountability, proof that not even a president should be above the law when accused of deceiving the American people to win an election. The Daniels Trump scandal wasn't just about an affair or hush money. It exposed deep questions about power, accountability, and democracy itself. From a 2006 golf trip to a 2024 courtroom, we see how personal choices ripple through the highest levels of justice. This trial marked a new era, where even former presidents face criminal accountability for actions that may have corrupted the democratic process. Stormy Daniels transformed from adult film actress to a symbol of resistance, while Trump's legacy and political future were put on the line. So, what does this mean for America? Is holding leaders accountable worth the risk of deepening divisions or essential to protecting democracy? Want to hear the full story and uncover the lessons behind this unprecedented scandal? Download the Skoob app now to get exclusive access to the complete episode. Thanks for listening to American Scandal Report by Skoob. Keep questioning, keep seeking truth, because in democracy, no one is above the law.